Hey, what's up, fam? So, as I was saying yesterday about wanting to do a who would win discussion, character A versus character B, I wanted to do the first one today, and I'm gonna start trying doing it by myself to see if it goes well. Because eventually, maybe if it's liked, then I could bring on other people that enjoy it, and we can have these discussions. But the first one I'm going to be doing as Bakugo from My Hero Academia against Magna from Black Clover. And the reason I started with these two is there's multiple reasons. One, My Hero Academia and Black Clover are both really popular right now. Before you say, I'm aware My Hero Academia is more popular, but Black Clover has definitely picked up a lot of traction. It's gotten a lot more attention, even if the anime isn't as solidly done as the My Hero Academia one. But it's definitely gotten a lot more fans since the anime came out, and I personally like it more. But you know, anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent of that. And obviously, popularity. The two characters are very similar with kind of their powers. They're both like explosion based. They're both very direct on, like, head first kind of characters. They're not afraid to take damage. They're not afraid to uh, take an attack if it means landing one on an opponent. And they have very similar personalities, as well as the last thing is I wanted to start out in with a match that I didn't have any favoritism towards a character. I like Bakugo and Magna about the same. I think they're both really cool, very well done characters with a lot of detail behind them and a lot of fleshing out of who they are, character development, all that kind of stuff. As well as I like both of their designs itself, just like the way that their characters are laid out. So I'll start. Let's start with Magna. I guess I'll start with Magna since I introduced Bakugo first. But Magna Swing, delinquent kind of main fanboy of Yami Sukihiro of the Black Bulls and the Black Clover series. He's got his entire fighting style is based around throwing and projectiles. Like, he's got mainly fireballs, right? He's got his main thing is fireballs, and it's not just chuck one, boom. He's got multiple kinds. His versatility and utility with his fireballs themselves seem to be his greatest aspect. His powers. He's got his base ones that fly out, hit, explode. Very very normal. He's got ones that will turn invisible and can change trajectory, and he's got ones that he could detonate remotely. And he recently showed that he can throw them out, land them in different kind of layouts. Like, he can mix them all together. So you got 10 fireballs coming out. You don't know which ones are gonna hit you and explode, which ones are about to vanish and change their position, which ones are gonna explode in midair and distract you from all the other ones. There's lots of different possibilities that he could do. He's also got a couple things like I know he's got binding magic. I'm not gonna include his broom in this at all. He does have a magic broom like a lot of people in Black Clover, but I'm not going to include that since it seems to only be whenever they travel somewhere. He doesn't use it in his fighting style. If it was prominent to his way of combat, that'd be different, but it's not. And Magna, definitely, when it comes to stats, his stamina and endurance seem to be his greatest thing. We see for instance, at the start of the series, for example, when Asta first goes to join the Black Bulls, and everyone really seems to be like, "Oh, cool, a new guy. That's fine. Let's get to know him." But Magna is like, "I'm not just gonna let some guy join. I'm gonna put him through a little trial to see if he's got what it takes." And Asta, Asta's thing is very durable, very stamina. He's got a strong will to keep on going, and from early on the series, even though he was a rookie, definitely his physical toughness was his biggest thing. But when he went up against Magna's fireball, when he's trying to kind of jump him into their Magic Knight order, Asta knew that if it hit him, he potentially could die. It was that powerful. But when he hit it back, kind of like someone hitting a baseball with a bat. When it hit Magna, Magna kind of got knocked down. It did some damage, but he got up and he was amused and entertained by this. He clearly has a very high pain tolerance, a very high level of stamina to keep going after taking stuff like that. Very high level of physical durability, and that would definitely be a huge key factor in a fight where he's able to, take hits while still keep going, still strategizing, still mixing up his abilities as a ranged fighter, so he can kind of set up an interesting strategy. And that's a big pro to his character. Obviously, a con, one of the big kicks to what would be very detrimental to the way he does stuff is him going in and kind of taking attacks that he wouldn't know if he would be fine doing with so. For instance, going up against someone like Luful, and for those who know who that is, it was a character much stronger than him, and he was able to get the jump. Magna was able to get the jump on him through kind of strategizing, but if it wasn't for somebody else on his team there that was helping him, Magna would have died multiple times over, because he honestly seems to lack a sense of dodge. Like, legitimately, Piccolo needs to teach him to fucking dodge. We need to get a bridged Piccolo up in here and scream dodge at him so he stops standing there. And that's definitely would be the biggest flaw to his character in terms of combat. He definitely gets fucked up a lot every single time he is in a battle, and it's not like Asta, where Asta is. He's a melee fighter. He's used to taking tons of damage. Like, Magna is completely a ranged fighter. Like, I don't think there's many times really when he goes into melee range. He doesn't seem like he should be taking damage. It just seems like it literally seems like one of those instances where a character just is beaten to shit so much. For instance, if you've ever read Beelzebub, the main character ends up having a strong resistance to electricity because Beel, the little kid he takes care of, electrocutes him all the time with his powers, and he kind of just developed a resistance over time. That's kind of like what I see with Magna. Is he just got fucked up so many times by his own abilities that he just seems physically durable because of it. I mean, even his melee-esque weapon that he has is this fire bat, but he really just uses it for increasing the range and the accuracy of his fireballs. But that's enough about him. Like I said, versatility, utility, and durability and stamina were definitely his big things. In this. And so now I'm going to get over to Bakugo. Bakugo, I can't remember his... I can't remember, because fucking Deku always calls him Ka-chan. It's just like with Deku, I forget Deku's actual name all the time, because I just remember him as Deku. But Bakugo, his kind of power is based around that his sweat is similar to nitroglycerin, and the longer he fights, the more he sweats, the more he can do his explosions, the more powerful his explosions are, and he even has his costume, his superhero costume, based around a way that he could store his sweat in these kind of like grenade gauntlets that he has on his wrists, as well as little cartridges he keeps on his belt, so he could store them up and deliver big attacks. Now, normally, I completely kind of glossed over their stats. I'll get to the stats near the end. But from what I've read, they seem to be about the same level of power from their normal moves, like their standard attacks. But from what we've seen from Magna has his max power, like just like a big fireball. But afterwards, he seemed to be very fatigued by it. It really drains him of his magic. And I forgot to mention he's got a binding spell, but I don't know. He doesn't seem to really do that until after fight, so I guess it's not really relevant. After he uses his big finishing move, it seems to fatigue him. Whereas Bakugo, as long as he's got these sweat cartridges, staged up and ready, using one and the way that his suit is designed to kind of help with the recoil of the explosions, it doesn't do the same kind of fatiguing effect. So that's a big thing on him. Whereas Magna would probably only be able to have one of these big fireballs that would take Bakugo down probably in one hit. It would drain him afterwards, so it's really going to screw him over if he just went right for it, which luckily he doesn't, because it doesn't seem to be how he fights. And Bakugo, though, will have more big attacks throughout the fight, which will be definitely beneficial to him. But the thing about between the two of them that I think will be a big determining factor is Bakugo doesn't seem to be nearly as durable as he is powerful. Like his damage output seems much higher than what he's able to take. But he also has kind of this personality of going in so headstrong and so on the attack that it could really screw him over, especially somebody who's kind of a bit of a utility and strategic fighter like Magna. I think it would be detrimental. Now, it isn't like, well, he's going to go in and just Magna's going to do his multiple spell combo and take him out because, ranged versus, long range versus a mid range. Kind of like a low range to like a mid range for Bakugo. But the thing that really will help him in this, that is, I see it as Bakugo's biggest kind of plus is the most useful thing to his power, and you kind of saw that in his fight against Todoroki in the festival arc, the little tournament that they had, is that even though Todoroki seemed to have more of a power output with his giant kind of like glaciers he was making in fire blasts, Bakugo was able to dodge them without needing to kind of project what way he was going by mid movement. If some dude, he's jumping to point A to point B, and Todoroki, for instance, is able to say, oh, he's going to be at point B, I'll just attack there, he's going to run into it. Or same thing with Magna. Now, normally someone like let's say, I don't know, let's say Asta jumps to an attack, someone would be able to try and predict where he's going, attack where he's going, and hit him with the attack. But with, say, Bakugo, while he's mid-movement, he can use his explosions to create, instead of going to point A to B, he can create a point C by, say, like, using an explosion, shooting himself off to a whole different spot, and maybe even that, he can maybe even go multiple points. As long as he's chaining these explosions, he could, instead of going to point A to C, he could go to point A to like H, and constantly be shifting positions. That is where Magna's biggest thing is his stamina and his durability. Bakugo's is definitely in the versatility of his power, his ability to be moving around so frequently, and in a way that would really help against the way that Magna fights with his ranged and kind of setting up stuff to be kind of be trapped in. Now, kind of getting to their stats, they both have kind of a similar power. They both are in that multi-city block range. Obviously, if you know what that is. If you don't know what it is, it's kind of like there are like tiers of power level of kind of like power that people use for kind of like their damage output and their durability. You got like building level, large building level, city block level, multi-city block level, town level, hill level, city level, mountain level, island level, and so on in different tiers. The way that I kind of see it, and the way that I'm going to do it in my style of things, is if you can hurt somebody with a certain level, like if both, like if for instance, both of them went up against a character who's town level. This is somebody who's taken town attacks that could level a town and keep fighting. If they are able to, use an attack and knock them out, obviously their attack potency is stronger than the town level attack the guy hit. But for instance, if it hits the person, it does damage, notable damage. Maybe it's just generic, like a bunch of scratch marks, visible points that they've affected them. The way that I do it is I'm gonna put them a tier below them, a tier below. For Magna, for instance, is he's fighting that guy I was talking about, Lufel earlier. Lufel should be about town level. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers about that, other than he should definitely be able to at least match a casual human captain level attack. I can go into that later in a different video I'll make about kind of like Black Clover power levels. But anyway, so Magma should be one level below, whereas Bakugo should definitely scale. Kind of like a I know Todoroki has a bunch of really large, kind of like glacier attacks, and from what people have worked out on the internet, that they're about multi-city block level, and I think Todoroki should or Bakugo should be about that with more of his kind of like two-handed larger attacks. But the thing about between the two of them, or sorry, I meant with his large charged attacks, like when he pulls the pin out of his grenade gauntlet and uses a charged up attack. And obviously, both of them, getting hit by one of those attacks would really put them in a bad spot, really kind of put them to near that losing point. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more about stats and the rules. The way that I see the rules, I meant to start with this, but I'll just go with this now, and then I'll make a video on the rules at some point, so I can just refer the video whenever I do one of these instead of having to say it every video. The characters will be as they are, like they're in character, how they act in the series, but nothing that would no gag stuff that would keep them from winning. For instance, if you've ever read or watched Medica Box, there's a character who named Kumagawa, who's really powerful, but the whole joke about him is he can't win because he's kind of a villain. So if he ever was winning a fight and you told him, "Hey, good job, you're winning," like he would literally just pass out because literal plot. It's a little bit of a parody. It's like half parody, half serious, but you know what I mean. Like anything that would, for some reason, make it so there's no way gonna fight. Like if I put Sanji up against a girl, I wouldn't say, well, Sanji would stand there and flirt with her and make goofy faces. I'd be like, no, they're gonna fight. So they're gonna be in character, but nothing that would hinder a fight. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna still kind of think and fight the same way, and have the same mindset. But it's just that one thing kind of taken away that would kind of be a crippling aspect to the fight itself. Two, the character's speed, like base speed, will be the same. It'll be equalized. I'll go wait and figure out a plan for characters with like a boost in speed ability, and kind of like a way about to go about that. I don't want to get too much into that, but anybody who like me who goes online and likes to do who would win discussions know that speed debates is like one of the most annoying things you can do, because then it comes into, oh, where do you get this time frame? Is this time frame correct? Did you get that from the anime? Is the anime canon? Is the anime, following exactly what the manga did to actually be seen as accurate? A bunch of ridiculous stuff. Is this an outlier? Fucking all this other stuff. So right now I'll just leave it as speed equal and base, and boost in speed based things will be just regarded as being faster. So obviously with Bakugo's like explosion based movements, he'd probably be a little bit faster than Magna is able to move. You know what I mean? The characters will rule 3. The characters will fight until either dead or unconscious. I know, for instance, there are people who are like, oh, Bond from the Seven Deadly Sins. Oh, he's immortal, so he'll just fight, and even if he loses, he'll get up X amount of time later after napping, and he'll be able to win, or or something like that, or him versus some other immortal character where it's just like, well, they never die, so it's just to see whichever series ends first, or something ridiculous. If a character is unconscious, then they lose. Only like very specific kind of things would really kind of alter that rule. Like if for say I'm trying to think, Alan, if you've ever read, I keep like using series references. If you ever read Mar, there's a character who shares a body with another, and when he falls asleep, they switch places, something like that. That'd be different. That would just be well, you can still kill him. It would just be, you knock him unconscious, this other guy's going to show up, and if you knock that guy unconscious, the other guy's going to show up. But you could still kill him. So, it's a living example, but not the best example. And rule 4 is any power-ups the characters have, they can only use in these matches if they can do it on their own. For instance, if Asta was in here, Asta learned how to do his anti-magic kind of form that he has in this series. He learned how to do that on his own. But if I was going to use Deku, and his kind of equivalent would be the infinite 100% he used against Overhaul. Now he can't use that on his own. That was because he had Airy to kind of bypass that whole his body can't handle 100% thing by healing him and fixing any damage shortly afterwards. So that's what I mean. If a character can, by their own ability, activate this power up, then yeah, they can do it in a match. But if they can't, they would otherwise need somebody else. Unless that specific person is in the match, then obviously they can't have that power up. So anyway, going into this match itself, the way I see it, both of them would go at each other pretty quick. They're both kind of jump right into attack kind of methods. Magna, the thing about Magna that would really be beneficial to how he is that very recently is what kind of gave me the idea where this would go in a very strong way. Before I was kind of on the fence, but like I plan this whole thing out, and then a chapter kind of dropped that kind of pushed me to one side of this fence, and I kind of see Magna being able to kind of trick Bakugo into getting close range and using the fact that he can take his attacks and keep standing and set up one of his larger attacks into his way of fighting. And there's a problem with using the way that Magna's fireballs work in comparison to My Hero Academia's world setup. For instance, they have the guy he was fighting when he had these these invisible fireballs is he had a strong magic sense. So even if they turn invisible, he'll still able to figure out a way to see where they are by sensing where their the mana was. And if there was a series that had an equivalent to it, maybe Fairy Tail also has magic sensing. If you had something like Bleach, where you'd say like, well, it's a Reishi and mana, they're both kind of like the energy sources. I forgot to mention that energy would be the same. Like I'm saying now, like you would treat something like Reishi and mana as kind of like the same thing in this hypothetical situation. So, for instance, if somebody in Bleach had very strong Reishi sensing abilities, they'd be able to sense the invisible fireballs the same way. But the problem is where Magna definitely has a much more short-lived energy pool when he does his bigger attacks, and Bakugo does not, which would be to Bakugo's advantage. Bakugo doesn't have the ability to sense the invisible fireballs, which would be a big plus on Magna's part. And the fact that he can set up all these very intricate kind of layouts of his fireballs is very, very telling to him fighting a melee person, because he fought a direct speed melee-based person recently, which would happen shortly after I thought of this specific matchup. And it kind of would probably go, Bakugo's in, they're launching attacks, fireballs are going everywhere. Bakugo's using his explosions to change mid-range, to, be on the ground, jump up in the air, do a couple flips, maybe spin, use his own explosions to kind of counteract Magna's fireballs. And Magna would kind of just keep setting up, throw a fireball at his feet. Oh, he dodges, and he's like, okay, I have this amount of time to get out of the way. It's a remote fireball. It explodes. It hits him into a bunch more fireballs. And he's not going to be able... The fact that he can't see the invisible fireballs is really going to hurt him. And similar to the way that Bakugo needs to really be in pretty close range, not like fist range, but seems to be, across, like, man, I think it's like 10, 15 feet or something that has some of his larger attacks. I think his biggest attack is like 30 feet or something. But he's mostly a pretty close range person. And for instance, that person that Magna fought shortly after I kind of thought of this matchup that really kind of pushed this match was he fought a guy who was much faster than him, had a similar level of kind of movement-based versatility, and was more powerful as well. Somebody who could definitely beat both of them. And he was able to go in, tank, grab the guy while he was coming in, because he was able to time what he was doing, use his own attacks on himself, taking multiple of his fireballs, and then immediately setting up his kind of like big finisher fireball at the same time. And where Where Bakugo could, kind of really take the advantage when it came to, um, you know, having more large attacks over the course of the fight. I don't think it would be a very long fight because neither of them seem to be very long period thinking fighters. They seem to be very, get in, throw your attacks out, try and finish this fast, be flashy, be explosive, be big. It's not like someone like, who'd be a good example? Oh, God, now I screwed myself over by trying to have some really clever fighter. I'll just cheat and say Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets up this, this specific strategy 20 turns earlier. You know what I mean? It would be, uh, it would really come down to the fact that uh, Bakugo doesn't have high enough durability to withstand most of Magna's attacks, but Magna can really take. He could definitely take all of Bakugo's normal attacks, and he could probably withstand a couple of Magna's or Bakugo's like big charge up attacks. And it's really going to hurt Bakugo that his big attacks is based on how long the fight will go by how much he can collect his own sweat. But Magnus seems to really want to put people down, throw his big attacks in, go crazy from the start, just the way his personality is. And I think that kind of clashing way of doing things, of one's bigger attacks are need time to be set up, whereas the other can go off right off the bat while setting up this large chain combo and being able to take way more than the other guy can dish out. And then, like I said, the difference of the fact that Bakugo wouldn't be able to detect the invisible fireballs, as well as he has fought somebody with higher levels of versatility and close range, like blitz fighting, mid-range change movement kind of person. It made it so much easier when I was thinking about this after that chapter came out a few weeks ago. But otherwise, that's why I think Magna would be the victor in this. I think he would. Bakugo would put up a fight, but Magna would put him down in the long run. The fact, one of the things that would really hurt, like it'd be a lot shorter if Magna actually used his binding magic in the middle of fights, but he doesn't. It just seems to kind of be one of his character crutches, and that's not one that would really hinder him in the fight in a way that that I was talking about earlier. That's more of just his fighting style itself. But anyway, maybe drop a comment below on what you think about this. Like I said, I'm gonna see as Magna as the first victor of my things. I'm calling them Clash of Fiction. But drop a comment below if you agree with me. If you disagree with me, maybe I forgot something out. Correct me. Otherwise, if you just don't believe what I have to say, maybe you want to try and argue a point I made, drop a comment. I'll respond to it. Maybe check out my other videos. Tell me if you like this whole idea. I really like kind of character versus character discussions. Maybe like I said, check out my other videos. Maybe subscribe to my channel. And otherwise, thank you very much. I hope you have a great day. And bye.